everyone. Thanks again for joining me on this episode where I have the pleasure of interviewing Callum Schofield. From not being able to say his name to now being stammering activist and host of the Schofield Stories podcast, Callum has come a long way. In this conversation, we discuss the challenges Callum had growing up and, more importantly, how he overcame those challenges. Not only how he deals with his stammer, but also how he deals with the mental and emotional effect of stammering. He is a young man, and I think we will see him go far. Don't forget to listen to the end. After the interview, I'll answer a question from the audience. This time, I'll answer a question about my personal journey to a better life. Hey, Caleb, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And thank you for joining us.
That's no problem. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. So you are originally, just to get the accent out of the way, from Wales, correct?
Yeah, I'm from South Wales.
Okay, and I'm not a native English speaker, as we just noticed.
Yeah, that's no worries.
Now, Caleb, the reason we're actually speaking today is because, see, we have guests on the podcast which overcome various challenges. Usually, people overcome challenges that are related to childhood traumas or ongoing traumas afterwards, financial, health, things like that. Since we haven't heard you speak much yet, why don't you go for it? And I think we'll hear from you what your story is.
Well, my struggle has been that from the ages of about 4 or 5, I've suffered from a stutter or a stammer, as it's sometimes called. And I'm 18 now, and up until when I turned 18, I couldn't do basic things like I couldn't say my name, I couldn't say Callum, I couldn't say my address, I couldn't order what I wanted at a restaurant, I'd order what I could say instead. And this stammer really had control over me, not just what I said, but mentally. I lacked self-confidence, self-esteem. I did suffer from anxiety quite a lot, all
Okay.
because I couldn't get my words out.
All right. And today, though, because I've spoken with you before, you sound better today than when I last spoke with you, even.
Yeah, it's strange, as even though I've worked to overcome the fear of stuttering, I still
Mhm.
have days when you have high and lows, when I'm better or worse, so to speak. And today, I'm using this technique more thoroughly. I've made a couple of phone
Okay.
calls today, so I'm already in the swing of speaking.
Wait, so being in the swing of speaking makes a difference for you?
Yeah, it's quite strange when you think about it, but if I've had a day when I'm just sat at my desk doing admin works and stuff like that, not talking a lot, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I might block on words. My speech might not be as fluent, but if I've got a day when I've spoken to a lot of people, I'm relaxed, or mainly it's spoken to a range of people. Like I've phoned friends and colleagues, and having that diversity, you could say, puts your mind at ease.
Okay. First of all, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And tell me, so does the way that you feel physically make a difference for you also, or?
Yeah, it definitely does. As I can only speak for my stammers. No two stammers are the same, but
Of
if I'm
course.
tired, if I'm sort of lacking concentration, if I'm stressed, all those are trigger points, or at least in the past they were bad trigger points that I knew previously my speech would have only been acceptable to me at the time if I was happy, if I
Mm-hmm.
was confident. But again, if you take that on the other side, if I'm not feeling 100%, if I'm feeling a bit rough, as I say, then I know that my speech will
Right.
suffer as a consequence.
Okay. And I believe So did you study by yourself or did you take a course to be able to improve? Because you said that that's really recent.
Well, last September, I went on a course called the Starfish Project, which is a non-profit organization, and it teaches you a breathing technique, which I'm using now, but it also teaches you about
Mhm.
mindset and how to overcome the fear of stammering. So that's the one side of it, the technique and the help. But I also had to work
Mhm.
individually. I had to work on my confidence. I had to accept my stammer. I had to accept who I am as a stammer could be classed as a disability, and accepting the fact that you are
Okay.
disabled can be a struggle sometimes. So as much as I had the technique, I had to push myself out to my comfort zone. I had to accept my stammer, and I had to change my mindset, get out of the stuttering mind, as you might say. And that was all independently. No one can help you when it comes to what's going on in your own mind, really.
So you use the word disability. Do you consider yourself disabled?
Honestly, I know it's going to sound stupid, but I don't know. As I would have before, when I couldn't say
Okay.
my name, when I couldn't say my address, it did hold me back. I didn't apply for a certain job. I didn't do things that I wanted to do. So at the time, I would have said, yes, I'm disabled. But now that I've got control over my mindset and control over my speech, then I would argue that
Mm-hmm. Of
I'm not saying you can overcome a disability, but maybe I
course.
was wrong to label myself.
Okay. So there's a story I didn't tell you last time that we spoke. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I told you the funny story about my brother, which maybe I'll repeat later. We'll see.
Yeah.
But there's a story I didn't tell you. When I was a kid, I couldn't say the letter L till the age I wasn't able to say L. Instead, I would say like Y. Yeah, right. The pain that you're mentioning about not being able to say your name. Especially as a kid, you go up to a group of new kids, they ask you, what's your name? And there you are, you can't say your name. And it's horrible.
Exactly. Yeah.
My mom had sent me to every speech therapist possible, right? Nothing worked. I just couldn't say it. Do you know? And this is why, I don't consider the problem that I had the same as what you have. With your
Yeah.
permission, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about that. Can you explain what you were going through and how it affected you as a kid or even a young adult?
Yeah. So I was quite lucky when I was a younger child, say up until the ages of 11 or 12,
Mhm.
because I was pretty carefree. I didn't see myself as any di- different to anyone else. But then as I
Mhm.
started to get older, that's when things started to hit home. That's when
Right.
I couldn't say the stuff my friends could say, the other people in school, and that's when I started to realize that maybe I wasn't the same after all. But even though I knew I had my stammer, I
Mhm.
always thought I consider myself the same. So
Right.
that knocked my confidence quite a bit, and I
Okay.
just went into my shell quite a lot. For majority of school, I had some cracky teachers who really helped me, but I was too scared to put my hand up. I was too scared to speak out. I kept myself to myself. I was seen as shy, and it was a constant anxiety in school and out of school. Simple things like, what if someone asked me a question? What if someone asked me what my dog's name is when I'm taking her for a walk on the street? What if
Right.
the waiter or waitress says they haven't got the only thing on the menu I can say? And it really made me anxious. Simple things like leaving the house to go out for a meal or something like that. It made me not want to go. I didn't socialize maybe outside the school as much as I could have or should have, just because it was constantly in the back of my head. What if I come across someone who isn't aware of my style? And what if people start mocking me? What if people start, taking the mick? Because I have had stuff like that before. You have people laugh at you. You have sniggers, comments, and quite a lot of it. I think maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I assumed they were laughing at me because that's what I was telling myself. I was telling myself that I was standing out. I was telling myself that I was standing out like a sore thumb, you could say. I was an easy target. A small lad, quiet,
Mm-hmm.
shy, can't even say his own name. So when I heard laughing, when I heard jokes, I was paranoid, and it did affect me. As I know that back then, and even up until I was 16, 17, even early 18, before I went on this course, I was still holding myself back massively.
Okay, and do you feel that that still has an effect on you? I mean, I know you see it differently today, but what you went through before, do you still feel remnants of it?
Yeah, as even though I'm a new person now, I could say a different person, I've got my confidence. There's not a social situation that I find daunting anymore. But obviously,
Okay.
having those 17 years of anxiety, low self-esteem, practically no confidence and self-confidence, I know it still does affect me. Like sometimes I know that I'll have a bit of a doubt in my head. I'll let that little seed plant, and if I'm having a
Mm-hmm.
bad day, bad week, but it's not a quick fix. I don't go on this course and suddenly it's all uphill. It's a long journey. There's ups and downs, and that's just life. So when I'm having these down patches, it's very easy to let that seed of the doubt back in and let that grow. And just little things like when it comes to friendships, relationships, I will still get, that feeling of self-worth and think, am I worth it? Am I good enough? And that still, goes around in my head sometimes. And that can be quite hard, because when people think that you've recovered, so to speak, then you don't want to turn around to say to someone, I'm actually not feeling the best right now. I'm feeling a bit anxious and having a bad a day, and you don't want to tell people that, because you don't want to let people down who've supported you and helped you build yourself back up. So I would still say, as much as I'm a lot better, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, I'm challenging myself, it still has an impact on me. I still think, am I still the little person who no one really wants to be associated with? Because when you're a kid, you think, oh, who would want to be friends with me? Who would want to have, who would want to be seen with me out? Who would want to, you think of the future? Am I going to marry someone? What woman would want a husband who couldn't say his own name? And as much as I think I've overcome that, we still have insecurities, and you still have those personal battles.
So, okay, so I have to ask, well, to tell you something. If you remember, I told you about my brother, right, who has
Yeah.
dyspraxia. For anybody who's listening to us who doesn't know, dyspraxia, there are many different, well, there are a few things related to it, but essentially there is a disconnect between the brain and the muscles and nerves in the jaw and throat. So, the words are in the brain, but it's not coming out, right?
Yeah.
That was how the speech therapist tried to explain it to me in the easiest way possible when I asked her, but I don't understand.
Yeah.
So there was something that me, I mean, I've always made my living off of my ability to speak. So I always said, but if he knows the words, because he's brilliant. And I do know that many people, because he could not speak at all, thought that he was a complete idiot, and he was not. I'm assuming you've also gone through something like that.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
Okay. And so one of the things that she had told us to do was that no matter how hard it may be to sit and to listen until he finally, gets his words out, not to, even if we know the end of it, right? Not to cut him off. Can you explain that one to me? Because I could never really understand. Does it hold you back in any way? Yeah. I'm assuming that people did that to you.
Yeah, it's again a tough one. I've been in a room full of people who stutter, and it's 50-50. Some people like it when you finish your sentences, other people don't. And for me, I find if someone cuts me off, it's okay
Mm.
if they know what I'm going to say. Well, I felt it was okay because I'm feeling awkward, embarrassed, ashamed. So it's okay that they speed up the end of this, really. But you always have
Okay.
times when someone cuts you off and either changes the subject, and that makes you feel like what you've got to say is less important, and that's where that worthlessness can come from. And it's always annoying that if someone cuts you off and they say the wrong thing, so they say not what you're trying to say, and then you end up with what you didn't want, or the point you were trying to make is actually completely different to what this person thinks you're trying to make. And that does make you feel like you're not equal. It makes you feel like, because you've got a speech impediment, that what you've got to say isn't as important as someone else.
Does this still happen to you today?
Not so much anymore. As a couple of times over the last, say, 6 months, I've had a couple of comments, a couple of people say things, but I'm not in a position to dwell on that anymore. As before, it would have affected me, but now I kind of think it's their problem, not my problem. And that is quite an important step to have, realizing that it's okay to block, it's okay to stutter. There's the whole idea, in my opinion, of fluency is wrong, because I don't think anyone can say they're 100% fluent. Everyone trips over words. You get people who go and ah. No one's 100% fluent. So I think that's why stuttering is just another ideal in some people's eyes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And that's why if someone cuts me off, I tend to use it as a situation to educate them and just explain that I've got a stammer, and I would rather it if I could finish my sentences and not get interrupted. Now, I don't say it in like an aggressive way, just say it in a nice way, just to make them feel at ease that there's a reason why I'm stuttering. It's not just, I think that's a problem. People might not be aware. So just to put everyone at ease, if you announce you have a stammer or stutter, and just say, so everyone feels comfortable, just so they know what to expect, if that makes sense.
I know that you're 18, but your maturity level, when I speak with you, I really feel like you're so much older. Do you think that, your stutter is one of the things that helped you become more mature so fast?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say so. You had to realize that not the same as the other kids, and because I think I'm just realizing that this is something I want to overcome. This is something I don't want to have, just to be able to take control of my speech, take control of my mindset.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, what are your future projects?
Well, at the moment, I'm hosting my own podcast from that. The fact that for 18 years, I had to hide my voice, but I was embarrassed, I was ashamed of it. Mm-hmm. So I thought, if I could take this massive leap out of my comfort zone, you could host one, be in control of that. I wanted to provide a platform where anyone can come on and share their story, as I've had so many guests who, like me, stammer and have suffered from stuttering for such a long time, and to have them come on my podcast and share their story, I think that's that's something special to me as well. So that's my main project.
Okay. Anything after that?
Notice a stammering activist, a bit more. Just my personal life, I'm hoping to go to university this year and study counselling and mental health. And then in the long run, I would love to set up my own counselling, coaching, sort of mentoring the business. So if someone needs counselling, come to me. But if someone needs support with their stutter, for example, or just life coaching, they can come to me. So like a 3-in-1 company is my dream for the future.
Okay. Well, I have no doubt you'll actually achieve that. None whatsoever.
Thank you.
No, you've gone over so much, in so little time. There's no doubt in my mind that you'll be able to help a lot of other people.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's because of my stammer, you could say, because now I'm more determined.
More determined to do good, to help, to improve yourself, to do what?
Yeah, it's a mixture, as I want to help others, Because I don't want, I want to try and limit the number of people who've been through what I've been through and what other people who stammer have been through. I want to try and change the perspective. I want to help. I'm also more determined to challenge myself and prove to myself, prove to the people who believed in me, and also prove to people who maybe pushed me to one side and judged me that, look at what I'm able to do. Look at what I'm achieving. Look at what I'm going to achieve. So I've got that inner determination. And in the past, I lacked commitment to a lot of things, whether that was fitness or hobbies or any just little things. I lacked commitment because everything seemed that you needed speech to progress and go further. But now I'm training every day to keep fit. I'm working on my body. I'm trying
Nice.
new things. I'm just so.
Okay. Well, that's very nice. If any of our listeners want to find you online, where should they go look?
So you can listen to my podcast, which is called The Schofield Stories. You can find that on all major platforms.
Okay. And we'll have that in the show notes, of course.
Page is Callum Schofield, Stammering Activist, and my Instagram is the_Schofield_stories.
All right. Now, one last question. If you could tell everybody who does not stutter in the world one thing, what would it be?
Oh, one thing, that's a good question, but I'd say that stuttering doesn't make anyone less capable of anything. For example, actors like Samuel Jackson, Emily Blunt, sports stars such as James Rodriguez. There's so many celebrities who stammer and have pushed themselves outside of the boundaries of what's expected of people who stutter. Then it just shows that there's no boundaries at all, in fact. So that would be my one thing to say to people who don't stutter is don't judge and don't overlook people. As I grew up in fear of being overlooked because of my speech, and now I'm hosting a podcast. And for me to say someone who has a stutter is hosting my own podcast, and surely that shows that I'm no different to anyone else.
I completely agree with that. My mother once was watching TV and saw an attorney, a well-known, well-respected attorney, who had a very strong stutter. And, he was successful, and he had his own TV show. So we called up my brother to see that, just because she wanted him to see that even if his speech does not become the greatest, he can still achieve a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm trying to make myself known and raise awareness, because I want to sort of be an example to people who don't believe they're capable or believe they're less important than other people. I want to stand up and say, no, you can achieve whatever you want, regardless of your speech, regardless of where you come from, who you are perceived as. I just want to reach out and help as many people. And if I can do that through doing something I love, like raising awareness of stammering, then that's a job well done for me.
And for this week's question from the audience, how have you, Ludovic, made your life better? In every way that you see on the Good Life Manifesto. Financially, I've created enough passive income to not have to worry about my monthly expenses. That makes me financially independent. Physically, I have worked on my health, my strength, and my physical fortitude. This lets me do the things I need to do without requiring someone's help. That makes me physically independent. Emotionally, I've worked on being satisfied with my own approval and not needing someone else's. That makes me emotionally independent. By having done all of these, I can now live the life I always dreamed about, which includes a lot of travel and spending time doing odd jobs for the sake of enjoyment, such as my stint at farming. Today, I'm calm and I have serenity I did not have before. Even when I go through tough times, I know how to deal with them so as not to be bogged down by them like I used to before. Thank you for listening to this interview with Callum. All of the links mentioned in the show are in the show notes. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us an honest review. Last but not least, go to our website and sign up for our newsletters, which come out twice a month, so you do not miss out on anything important.